really love what you say, because astrological language, there are different types of astrology, and you mentioned that you are specifically into evolutionary type of astrology. Astrological language is extremely complicated.
People really weave or write a new story of their life based on a deep understanding and self-understanding and self-awareness. So I take a very proactive, creative approach to the astrology, really.
Because the universe doesn't make mistakes.
Everything is working together, and quantum science is actually kind of proving that now. So I kind of try and work with my clients to help them to understand not only who they are as this one individual system, but how they are working and responding and reacting to everything else, the culture they live in, the world they live in, and the planets. So
hello, beautiful souls. So here I am today, your host, Julia, and today I would love to introduce you a really beautiful soul. Her name is Louise Edington. She's a cosmic wisdom weaver. This is a really intriguing name, I would say, when I first heard about it. She has a tremendously powerful social media. I will put all the links here down this video, so kindly check them out. She has a ton of wisdom in her. She's a real weaver. So Louise, welcome to the show. Could you please elaborate to... Yes, I'm sorry for that. Could you please elaborate a bit more? How did you start your journey? I already know part of your journey, but I would love you to tell it to me again and to all those newcomers here who just listened to ours first time. This girl has a tremendously powerful story, how she came into astrology world. And she doesn't only use astrology, she's weaving it literally with lots of her spiritual gifts. So I'm all ears.
Okay. Well, it's where do I start? But I'm going to start back in 1989. I had my Saturn return. Most people know something. If you know anything about astrology, most people know that we have a Saturn return around age 29. And it's a time of maturation. It can be a hard time, but it's not always. Mine really wasn't. And at that time, I wanted to kind of change my life. That's common with the Saturn return. And a friend of mine, she had studied astrology, and I'd always been interested in sun signs and basic astrology, but this friend of mine created my chart. This is back in the days when we had no computers. She hand calculated it and did a written kind of interpretation, and I was like, whoa, this is so accurate. So I said I would love to learn how to do astrology. So she gave me some books. I actually taught myself how to hand calculate charts and practiced on anybody that would let me. But at the same time as well, I was also introduced to Native American shamanism, for want of a better word, by the fact I was invited along to some real sweat lodges, what I would call real sweat lodges, where we would go and build the sweat lodge in the woods, from the willow and from putting the stones in. And that really launched a lifelong interest. But it wasn't until 2011 when I actually realized I could kind of make this my work. So there was a big gap between kind of the initiation and realizing I could make all of these things my work. So I started with astrology. I took one-on-one lessons with my original main teacher. I took lots of other classes. I also took a year-long shamanic practitioner course. I started using the tarot as well. And gradually over time, I just realized how interconnected everything was. And even though I was trained in a kind of a specific kind of astrology called evolutionary astrology, I kind of branched into doing my own thing. I have a membership where I get the members doing shamanic journeying to the planets, to the energies, so that they actually learn how to feel the energies within themselves. I do that with some of my other work. I run a class called the Venus Retrograde Heroine's Journey, where we do a lot of shamanic healing work as well, soul retrieval, all those kind of things. But also I'm kind of one of those people who has a lot of irons in the fire. I love to write too. So then I got the opportunity to write. So I wrote 3 books. And my way of working now has gradually become how to help people really weave or write a new story of their life based on a deep understanding and self-understanding and self-awareness. So I take a very proactive, creative approach to the astrology, really.
Mm. I really, really love what you say,
Mm,
because astrological language, there are different types of astrology, and you mentioned that you are specifically into evolutionary type of astrology.
mm,
Astrological language is extremely, extremely complicated. Like it's very, very, when I first like went into like westernized astrology, it's like, okay, I close this book. It's really hard for me, you know? So when I see people who are going deep into reading those natal charts, you know, birth charts, like everything deeper into that direction, I really have high respect there, because I know how much effort it takes to go deep into that. It shows for me immediately the depth of the mind.
yeah.
So it's already like something to honor and respect. And you know, I was not into astrology, honestly, but the interesting thing, like what brought my attention to astrology, I was in Turkey. So in Turkey, we were in Istanbul with my husband, and there was the Museum of Technology and Science, something like this there. I don't know if you are aware of it, but
No,
there are so many instruments there, like crazy complicated instruments. And all these instruments and tools are designed to observe stars.
Ah.
Can you imagine? It is just like, and
Yeah.
it's called like Museum of Technology and Science, something that way. I think if you just write it that way, Museum of Technology and Science in Google Istanbul, you will immediately see it. And it is fascinating. I think if you ever will be in that part of the world, just go there. It is
Oh, I
tremendous.
will.
Yes. And they always tell us, oh, are those ancient people? They are, you know, they don't know. They are so like, we came from apes or something like this.
No.
But then when I see like something like this, these powerful tools created by those ancient people, I cannot believe I came from apes.
Yeah. They knew a lot more than we did. And
Yes.
even if there is some connection with apes at some point, it's way, 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 way back. So
Yes. Yes. So could you
yeah.
elaborate a bit more your astrology type so that we could understand it more? Because I'm not sure
Yeah.
everyone here heard ever about evolutionary type of astrology. By the way, guys, there are
Yeah.
multiple types of astrology.
Oh, there are.
So first of all, this is an expert here. She can first go through evolutionary astrology, and then could you please name us how many other astrology types are here, so that to understand
Oh
all the
gosh,
beauty
yeah.
of them.
Well, evolutionary astrology, in a nutshell, says that we are evolving as a person from the minute we're born to the minute that we die. And that, everybody always thinks that's evolving into something higher. No, not necessarily. We're just evolving, we're changing, but we are growing. We're learning some lessons, hopefully. Not everybody does. But we're also evolving as a culture, again, not always for the better sometimes, but we're always changing and evolving. It's like this spiral upwards and spiral downwards, I call it. we're kind of evolving up to us on a spiritual journey, but we're also evolving downwards into understanding what it is to be a human being on this earth. If that makes sense. So
Yes.
that's the basic theory of evolutionary astrology. But then I bring in the shamanic connection, which understands the connection with all that there is, with nature, with plants, with spirit, with whatever that is for you. And so I don't think we can separate any of that out. I think we always, as a human being, as we learn to understand who we are, it's in relationship to everything else. So that's kind of where my shamanic work comes in, where I get people doing shamanic work with this cosmic cycles. And it's kind of like
Wow,
it's kind of
this is
like quantum,
powerful.
it's kind of like quantum science, really. You know, we are a system, or systems theory, we are each an individual system, and then there's all these other systems that are bouncing off each other and reacting against each other, and take it outwards to the planets and to the heart of the cosmos, whatever that is. Call it the mind of God, whatever you want to call it. But you know, everything is working together, and quantum science is actually kind of proving that now. So I kind of try and work with my clients to help them to understand not only who they are as this one individual system, but how they are working and responding and reacting to everything else, the culture they live in, the world they live in, uh, and the planets. So it's
Mm.
it's pretty cosmic. So
So we are kind of like those cosmic beings, right? Cosmic beings.
yeah, yeah.
Instead of being in that circle, which we were
Mhm.
trained to be in our schools, in our education system, now Louisa is actually accumulating all this knowledge and she's sharing to unravel, to open up that circle.
Mm.
So, guys, to demonstrate what she's doing, I want to show you. Look at this. So here, how our regular classical education system trained us, right? The circle.
Yep.
Now, what Louise is doing, she's saying, guys, open it up, these things, and become cosmic being,
Mhm.
so that this stuff will start penetrating and you become kind of descending, not ascending,
Yes,
descending into all the
descending.
elements, right?
Yes. Yeah, yes. Exactly.
So I got it right.
Because really, you know, as this being, say Louise, on this earth in this lifetime, really that's all my consciousness is aware of, me as a being. So, but to feel into that connection really kind of opens up the other possibilities of maybe other lives, past lives, concurrent lives, even. Who knows? You know, who knows what time is? We probably made that up too. So.
Yes, I love it. I love what you say because that's the area of my study, actually. Because honestly, if you go to all these occult science, and not everyone here probably respecting it, but some maybe went into that direction. But if you have been studying it sometime in your life, you know one thing, one rule there is that man is woman's karma. And why?
Yes.
Because if I experienced something here, I want to descend more into matter. And
Yes.
men here, guys, they are having more strict brains, more kind of like structured brains. That's why they are so-called more intelligent. But our brains are flexible, and this is
Yeah.
another power, right?
Yeah. And so you know, rational materialism is the very male kind of side of things. And it's, of course, it's, you know, men have feminine uh, energies in them, and it, you know, a lot of women have that kind of rational brain too.
Mm.
So it's not, it's all within us, within each of us, really. So, but we are moving now. The astrology tells me we are moving out of that hierarchical, you know, everything is rational science. There's actually a book called The Flip by a guy called Jeffrey Kripal, and he actually taught study of religion. He's a you know, professor, but he talks about how even scientists, some scientists are flipping to realize that there is this third way between the rational brain and just feelings, and joining it all in the middle and trusting both. So I think there's a lot of us that are realizing that everything needs to come together. We can't just
Yes,
have it.
centralized,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Centralized.
And even astrology, you know, for decades, a lot of astrology has been about proving it scientifically. But there's an element you can't in some ways, because it's cycles, and every cycle is slightly different. So I
Mm,
think it takes this second attention of seeing it with a bit of an intuition as well to really understand it. So yeah,
yes, I believe so that
yeah,
it's more like seeing it more with your soul than with
yes,
your brain,
yes,
right? So
yeah,
today, let's say we were trained to, in some sense, see ourselves, women, through
mhm,
generations. We are
yeah.
powerless. But the
Mhm.
interesting thing is today women have tremendous power.
Oh, we do.
It's
Yeah,
like, right? And the
yeah,
power is in those flexible brains, girls. So
yes.
I want to mention this very important point. Flexible brains, not strict brains. So that intelligence from guys, they build everything.
Mhm.
They're very
Yeah.
intelligent. They play chess
Oh, yeah,
amazingly, right?
yeah. And they
But
and that's needed as well. But
yes,
we need
yes.
the
Let's not go into
flexibility.
their
I like
field.
that.
Let them build. Let them build.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes, they can build. Yeah.
Yeah, but we actually, what can a woman's soul experience? A man's soul only has to be taught. Any
Yeah.
woman's soul can experience so much is because we are women. We have that gift. They don't
Mm,
understand it because we have that inner intuition. High priestess, by the way, is already within us. We don't need to be
yeah.
taught it, right? So
Yeah.
they always say, witch, she knows something. My husband actually tells me, how do you know this stuff? You just
Oh,
saw a
mine
photo,
too.
right?
My my he calls it my witchy ways. He's teasing,
Yes.
but
But
he yeah.
it's interesting because a miracle or witchcraft or something, they perceive it on some level as something dangerous. But
Yeah.
what is a miracle? What is a
Yeah.
miracle? Aircraft
Yeah.
was a miracle a few years ago,
Mhm. Yeah.
right?
But it took somebody to kind of tune into another level of mental activity to be able to even vision it. Well, Leonardo da Vinci, he was one of the first, right? Because he,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So some, I find it interesting that, you know, there's women now who are trying to do that rational science thing, and I think a lot of women have been trying to live in a very rational linear world and be that way, whereas it's ignoring our instincts. But I do also see that a lot of men now are being pulled into that more instinctual feeling side of it as well, which it gives me great hope for the future, basically. So people are
Yes.
realizing.
I see it
Yeah,
as well, because I
yeah.
remember how my wave was. The first wave was more about masculinity. I was taught,
Mhm,
like many here, hey, you need to,
mhm.
you need to be like, go, go,
Yes,
go through this world, you
yes,
need to earn,
yeah.
you need to do, you need to
Oh,
strive, you need to achieve.
oh, and climb up the corporate ladder and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, it's everywhere. The
Okay.
ladder, it's not just the corporate, it's everywhere, the
Yes,
ladder.
it
Like
is. It
wherever
is
you
everywhere.
see it, right? So with the
Yeah.
house, purchasing house, it's also some ladder there in the bank.
Oh, yes. I know. I agree. But I do see a shift. Even though there is the resistance, we see the resistance to this shift. You know, people trying to hang on to that sense of power and control and domination, but
Yes.
they're not going to win out. We're moving into a new paradigm, so
But that's fine.
yeah.
Resistance
Yeah.
is natural, right? So
Oh, it is. Yeah.
yeah, whenever it happens, by the way, guys, whenever resistance is happening in you, forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
No, everyone is in resistance. Now, let me give you
Exactly.
a metaphor here. So there is a card. I already I wish I could show it to you, specifically in my deck, which this is one. Oh my God, it's just happening. You know, it was meant to be. So this is the
Oh,
card
3 of 1.
showing, yeah, the evolution of the caterpillar into a butterfly.
Mm.
Do you see? So the
Mm-hmm.
caterpillar must actually hold. It is afraid. It doesn't know it can fly. And actually, it
Mm.
cannot fly right now. There must be
No.
certain evolutionary stage which should happen so that the wings will be created here. And by the way, if you study caterpillars in nature, and I'm pretty sure that Louise knows about it, caterpillars, they actually create that cocoon from their own poison.
They
It
do, and
must happen.
they eat themselves up, and then they're reborn.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah.
So when we see that resistance, it's actually necessary. It's very
Mm-hmm.
necessary because
Yeah.
right now that poison will be used for this being to become that being.
Mm-hmm.
And by the
Yeah.
way, for those seers here, there are many guys here, I'm pretty sure, and beautiful ladies who are so-called becoming seers. I myself coming from the land of seers from Siberia, and there are lots of
Mm-hmm.
shamans there, lots of shamanism. And Louise, she is into shamanic stuff. So we
Mm.
actually, when we are surrounded by this, we start seeing slightly more. And I'm pretty sure many of you here who got attracted to this episode, you are seers or you are onto your path.
Mm.
One of the
Yeah.
mistakes, guys, which may happen if you start seeing, you want to help them and open up this cocoon earlier than it is required.
Mm.
Louise, can you support me in that?
Oh, absolutely. It's and I see that with client after client. It's always right timing for this opening up and this kind of rebirth and becoming who you are. And it's often a cycle of many kind of rebirths throughout the life as well. So, and the astrological cycles tell you that, but also, like I was opened up to astrology and really the realms of the shaman in 1989. I didn't really follow that path fully until after 2012. Sometimes it has to kind of cook, and everything else I did in between did inform that, but I didn't make it my work. So, you can't hurry it sometimes. It's happens in right timing. So, yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
everything has to have right time. These are
Yeah.
really wise words because
Yeah.
as again, coming back to the same card, if we open up the caterpillar earlier than it is required, we'll destroy it. Let's say you
Mm-hmm.
have a rose, a flower in front of you. It was closed. How can you open it? If
Mm-hmm.
you open it earlier than it should be opened, you will destroy it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It will
Yeah.
die.
So, Louise, coming back to different types of astrology, which
Oh,
other
yes.
types of astrology exist?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, you came into astrology that you know of astrology through Vedic astrology, which is Hindu astrology, kind of one of the oldest systems. But there's Babylonian astrology. There's elective astrology, which it means choosing a date, a good date to do something or start something. There is horary astrology, which is the astrology of asking a question, like for lost objects, or will I buy this? Should I buy a property? There's Egyptian astrology. And I think the Celts, where I'm from originally, they had their own form of divination. There's been astrology way back to the earliest real evidence of Western civilization, at least, kind of tracking the stars, are these tablets that are thousands of years old. There's Mayan astrology, Um, but they're all based on the cycles of the planets, really.
Inca astrology
Sorry?
as well. Inca. Because
Oh yes, Inca.
yes,
Yeah. Inca. Probably all of the cultures. I wouldn't be surprised if your own original culture, Siberia, had some method of tracking the cycles of the stars. So some form of astrology. Of course, a lot of it wasn't written down at first. It was, just from
they definitely
witnessing
knew
it.
something for sure. I
Oh
was never
yeah,
into
yeah.
that when I was living there. So again,
Uh-huh.
my first acquaintance with astrology was specifically in Turkey when I was just like,
Yeah,
oh, why is
yeah.
it so? Like these people know something. Those such complicated
Yeah,
machines,
yeah.
and it invoked my interest. It invoked my
Mm,
interest, and I just like it cannot be that such types of machines were created by some simple like ape's mind. It cannot
I
be that
know.
those people knew something.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. I, talking of evolution of people and culture, I kind of don't like this view that ancient peoples were primitive and didn't know their stuff. They were just perhaps tuned in a different way, or they could, for example, until Uranus was discovered because of the invention of telescopes, we could only see as far as Saturn. So that was the limit of our universe for astrology. But since 1781 and all these newly discovered planets, asteroids, comets, everything, that's shifting us and it's expanding our known consciousness. But they weren't primitive. They were making sense of what they could see and they were understanding the cycles. So,
Yes, this is so
yeah.
powerful what you said. They are making sense of what
Hmm.
they could see. And by the
Yeah.
way, it's also referring to our consciousness as well. If you are
Yeah.
close, guys, if you are living in your circle, again, coming back to
Hmm.
this,
Yeah.
how can you see? Not so long ago, I don't remember, I visited some channel of some scientists. They were like, they continuously open up new planets, new planets. So
Oh,
they
I
got,
know.
yeah. So, and I love really watching such channels. And
Mm,
it's interesting how there were two girls talking there. They were scientists of NASA, and they were talking about opening the new planet, and it's so exciting. So the thing is, they try to find the similar traits of Earth in different galaxies. And I was just like,
yeah,
what are you
I
talking
know.
about? It's just
Yeah,
like, oh, it's just like, how can you find it? May be
yeah,
super unique to our system. But
I know.
of course, they see only that. They
Yeah.
cannot find that. And they are not open with their mind to something else, to some other life forms.
I know. It's interesting, isn't it? How we see,
Yeah.
how we can only really perceive what we know. And I don't think we're ever going to fully understand how the cosmos, the mind of the cosmos fully works. It seems to have, because the cycles are so working together, the planets, some of them have very even orbits, you call them, but they all work together and bounce off each other. It seems to have a bit of a plan. But what's the plan? Who
Mhm.
knows? I don't think we're ever going to really find out what the mind of God is, or it's how we respond and react to it and perceive it. Like even the myths, I study a lot of myths as well because a lot of astrology
Which kind of
is,
myths?
well, interesting because a lot of astrology, especially Western astrology, is informed by Greek myth mainly and some Roman myth. Like all the planets are named, well, they were
Mm.
named, after Greek and Roman gods. But all the myths really are just stories that are trying to make sense of what's happening out there. And now some of these newly discovered planets are being named after Polynesian deities, for example, or Inuit deities. And And there's even one now being named after a character from Lord of the Rings. So this is why I call it wisdom weaving, because we are creating new myths from this expanded view of what we see. That includes like science, even realizing that we are not just hard beings that you can touch, but we are wave as well, that there's other things that can't quite be seen, kind of thing, and two things can be operating in the same place at the same time. It's kind of weird, you know. And I've tried to study quantum science a little bit, but I stopped when I read that if you think you understand quantum science, you don't really understand it. I was like, I haven't got time to read every quantum science book in the world. I just know that we are more than just this physical being, and everything, like we're connected to mushrooms, but we're also connected to all the planets in
Earth,
some way.
right?
Yes, yeah. And it's mind, body, spirit within us. It's all kind of reflected within us. So we've been stuck in the mind bit, but
Yes,
now
a bit
now we're
uprooted, a bit uprooted.
yes, yes, yeah. Now we're understanding that you have to kind of integrate it all. New therapies, new therapeutic approaches are finding the same. I don't know if you've heard of parts work and polyvagal theory about the vagus nerve that runs up and down.
No, can you please explain
Mm,
us?
yeah. Well, the vagus nerve is the central biggest nerve, in
Mhm.
fact, two, that runs right from the base of the brain or the skull through the heart and down to the root. And that's connecting your mind, body, spirit through the heart, right? And a lot of these new psychotherapies, or whatever you want to call them, are about kind of tuning into what happens when, say, you've got a trauma trigger or something, and then creating that balanced nerve up and down, mind, body, spirit. It's kind of just the same as chakra balancing has been teaching for years, but but science and spirituality are melding again, that
It's
everything's
a
coming
good bridge
together.
for those who are too rational, right? Just to come
Yes,
back to the same thing.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, they even
Yeah.
call it spiritual science. I went to Deepak Chopra's,
Yes.
and he's like a very, very talented guy in that. He knows how
Yeah,
to speak to masses. So
he
he
does.
actually uses even one, he has a few podcasts actually, and one of
Yeah.
them is called like spiritual science. And she's like, oh,
Mhm.
this is smart, this is really smart.
Mhm.
Just to use it that way. Because when I,
Yeah.
for example, go to all these, for example, Sadhguru, I really love that guy. I don't know if you heard about him.
Oh, I've heard of
Yeah,
most
so
of these guys. I
amazing,
don't have
amazing
to.
guy. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not into like following gurus and everything, but
Me
this guy I
neither.
deeply respect. Why? Because he knows what he's doing from the perspective of just talking to really masses. And
Mm,
masses represent by themselves, they still have that rational mind. So he
yes.
uses so much science. He's
Hmm.
so knowledgeable. And let's say he goes to the West, he speaks lots of science. Even in India, he speaks with science. But
Mm.
that science is required to bridge it, right? To bridge
It
it. You
is.
cannot just say, hey, guys, connect to your astral body, or be ready
No,
to
you
connect
can't.
to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He needs to do
And just
certain work, right?
kind of just like me saying we are a system connected to all these other systems, so is science. Math is a symbolic language, really, and astrology is math in a lot of ways, So again, it's all about kind of breaking it down and using that rational side to kind of understand how it works, but then it has to have that spiritual side too to connect to it.
Yes.
So,
It actually is
yeah.
mind-boggling because the
Oh, it is.
universe doesn't make mistakes. Here we keep
Mhm.
judging like, oh, why did I spend those 5 years with this bastard? You know, just like
I
what?
know.
But the universe doesn't make mistakes. You know?
I do think we human beings are, as far as we know, pretty unique in the cosmos in that we have this consciousness. Nobody's ever really, and I've watched arguments on YouTube about what is consciousness, you know. Nobody really knows what consciousness is, other than really it is actually the mind mixed with the heart and mixed with the soul, I would say. But we are the ones with free will about how we respond to all of this stuff. Like
Oh,
if,
I love it. I love the word
yeah,
respond. This
yeah,
calls responsibility. It's
yes,
exactly that thing.
yes,
Because if we
yeah,
look at Mother Nature, right? In Mother Nature, the trees, they breathe out what we breathe in. So everything
yes,
is super responsive in nature,
yeah. And so are
right?
we. But we have the consciousness to say, or to get support, or to learn to understand ourselves, so that when stuff happens in the world, because it does, stuff happens in the world, stuff happens to us, we can respond to it differently
Mm.
and come from a place of kind of very rooted, balanced strength, you know. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, there is so much wisdom in that response. Here, when you say the
Mhm.
word responsibility, it's a bad word. It's just like nobody wants to hear about this word. Here in Canada, for example, I will tell you when I just got here, I really love Canada, and like it's an amazing country, and there is the
Mm,
responsibility code here, but the
yeah,
responsibility is quite limited. Let's say
it
in
is.
my house, let me give you
Yeah.
the example. So in my house, I have responsibility in my front yard to do certain thing. And then outside of that, it's not my responsibility already. You know? And
I
everyone
know.
knows that. It's a silent rule. And I
I
see
know.
people actually are going beyond that responsibility. It's a beautiful thing to see. But
Mm,
at the same time, I see how like there is this code of responsibility, but at the same time, it's slightly like this is my house, this is my responsibility. But what's happening? Let's say the person fell down nearby that house. Do I help him or
yeah.
not? Is it my responsibility or not? You know,
Mm,
that's a big question.
yeah. Well, I think we're all, well, we are responsible for ourselves, for kind of being the best human being we can possibly
Yes.
attain to being. And whatever best means, I don't even, that's a loaded thing too, but also that comes to that putting your oxygen mask on first, kind of really learning to understand yourself, deep self-awareness, and then love, of course, bringing the heart in, being
Love, yes.
self-love, and then that ripples out to loving others. But then after you've kind of taken this responsibility for yourself, you are coming from a place of
Yeah.
strength, and you can
More.
support others, and it ripples out. So yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. I actually
yeah.
see it the same way
Mm,
because I've been traveling with my husband so many years, actually for 10 years. And what
mm,
I see is the wealthiest people, like my husband gets connected to many, and I
mm-hmm,
see they take responsibility, meaning
yes,
that let's say he met a guy from Pakistan, and that guy felt, I am responsible for all people in Pakistan.
mm-hmm,
And he was doing businesses around that and everything. He's just like, I'm responsible for all those people so that they would live better, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And I'm just like, oh my God. And then he's extremely
yeah,
wealthy dude. And I'm just like,
yeah,
oh, wow. He just takes response. And then imagine he says, Pakistan is not enough. I will take care about Malaysia.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Now imagine the level of responsibility. And
yeah,
then maybe he says, already not enough. I want to take
yeah,
care about all people.
yeah. So long as they're coming from the take care and thing first, and they're very self-aware, not coming
Yes.
from that not coming from that dominator, well, I'm
Oh,
responsible and
yeah.
I control kind of thing.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
domination. I
yes,
think it
yeah,
creates so much pressure because
yeah.
actually, let me guys demonstrate to you what is domination. Look, domination is coming back to the same circle because here we are in our wants. If I want something, I'm just like pressured by my wants. It's so
Yes.
important, all what I want, right? But
Hmm.
if I try to figure out my place here in this world, like
Mm.
Louise says, and figuring out what is my sacred role in this cosmos of all
Yeah,
creation,
yeah.
right? Then I
Hmm.
become this type of being, this type of
Yeah.
being. Then I loosen a bit everything around me. I go through the world a
Hmm.
bit loosened. I'm a bit more
Yeah.
playful. Isn't it so?
So, oh, definitely. So, I will say not all wealthy people take the kind of responsibility that person did, unfortunately, but a lot do, and that's good.
Yes, I
So
think
I'm,
there are two types there.
yes,
So
there
I just
are.
wanted to
Yeah.
demonstrate the beautiful part.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not against people having money though. That's my thing, I'm not like if money is just energy as well, and if people have been lucky enough to build wealth or inherit it, if they can use that well, but that's usually through self-understanding and self-awareness of who they really are at root.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to also introduce here, that was a very interesting talk, but I wanted to
Mm.
introduce Louise uh, books. Do you know, guys, she is writing books about astrology. Look at this beauty. And she writes it in humane language, you can understand it. So I highly recommend her books. They will be there down just in the links. You will be able to see it all. But I wanted to have a brief talk specifically about tarot and astrology. I even have a few things
and
here.
this is how we met, by the way, because Yulia's asked me if I would use her deck on my podcast, which so I have been doing. And I do want to say before you asked me the questions that I am writing 2 more books, and I have a Substack blog, Cosmic Owl on Substack. I write daily energy updates and other things on Substack if anybody wants to follow. So I write all the time. So
Yes, and she's a really knowledgeable person. She has so much into her. I honestly watch her educational program. It's like, I believe so. It's not even like some additional video on YouTube, guys. She's sharing so much, and she has a podcast, and it's also amazing. It's just like you sometimes hardly can find really knowledgeable people. She has a ton of knowledge there, so she's a real weaver,
Thank you.
guys. So I would really
Yeah.
recommend it. I love deep mind people. I really love. So when I meet them, I am all for them just to spread the light into the world, So
Thank
coming
you.
back to the book, coming back to the book. So look, I always I was wondering, how do you combine actually tarot and astrology? And I would love you to, if you have maybe one card pool right now, you just may shuffle and demonstrate to us how would you use it in practice, tarot and astrology.
I use your deck. Yeah, I'll use your deck to pull a card.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can use whatever you like.
Oh, I'll use yours. It's right in front of me. So, so I will say some decks have these astrology symbols on them. This is the Aleister Crowley deck, the Toss or Thoth deck. Okay. And he has like this one is the 2 of Pentacles or 2 of Discs, and he has the Jupiter and Capricorn symbols on them.
Can you show it close to the?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the Jupiter and there's the Capricorn. He actually calls Pentacles discs because some deck, yeah. So I didn't, and it is, I think a lot of it comes from people like Crowley who realized that the tarot and astrology and everything are all connected. A lot of people didn't like Crowley because he was a strange guy, but he gave us some good things like that tarot deck. So,
Yes.
but once you get to know the astrological symbolism with the cards, it just can add to your understanding. So this is the Six of Cups I pulled. So from your deck.
Can you show
So
it closer?
okay,
Oh,
I didn't want my camera to go fuzzy, but that's all right.
all right.
So this is the Six of Cups.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, in tarot, you'll know, Yulia, that the cups are, you know, associated with water signs because they're emotions and so on. You know?
Yes.
So the Six of Cups and the numbers matter too, and I talk about that in the book. So the Six of Cups is a Scorpio card basically, and it's the sun in Scorpio. So it's a water element, and that would bring out very scorpionic energies, very deep emotions, for example. And so that really kind of fits with that card to my mind. So, and it's a number 6, which is a number of harmony. So, you know, all those things come together in the tarot, the astrology, to everything to inform it. And I think when people learn the tarot, if they just kind of learn, yeah, thank you. If they kind of just learn the rote meanings, like the Six of Cups just means this, that's great to start. But like all these kind of divination things, I think understanding the elements and the water signs and things like that, at least to a degree, really deepens the use of the tarot. So
That is
yeah,
quite
would you?
interesting. So we had that live demonstration how we can combine here astrology in the westernized format with tarot cards reading, and Louise actually is going really deep into it, into this book. Now, Louise, I have a question to you, a really
Yes.
personal one. So I understand all these elements and minor arcana and everything. There are 4 elements there, right? But then you mentioned, let's say, water. And in water, right, we go to Scorpio, we go to Pisces, and we go to which one as well? What was the third element?
Cancer.
Yeah. So, but when I go to cups, right? Let's go to cups in your book. I see, let's say, 9 of cups, it's Pisces.
Yes.
And then I see 7 of cups, it's Scorpio. Is there some logic why Scorpio is on 7 of cups and why Pisces is on 9 of cups?
Cancer is the first water sign in the zodiac. The zodiac goes kind of in the counterclockwise direction. Cancer's the first water sign, so Cancer is the first cards in the minor arcana. Then, you know, there's the middle cards are Scorpio, which is the second water sign. And then the final water sign is the more complex end of the minor arcana, the end of the zodiac. So it inhabits the last cards of the minor arcana. So they always go in order of the signs within the elements. So Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. If it's fire, then it's Aries, Leo, then Sagittarius. So, yeah.
All right.
Because in the
now let's get back. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Now let's get to major arcana. So in major arcana, very interesting because let's say we look at the Fool. So the Fool, the planet sign is Uranus. So
I knew you were going to pick the Fool.
Now the Magician, it's Mercury. right?
Yeah.
Then we go to High Priestess, the moon. The Empress starts the zodiac. But before these
Starts
three
the
cards,
zodiac.
they were not even into the zodiac.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, Uranus, I think I mentioned Uranus already as we talked about moving into this new paradigm, this quantum realm. Uranus broke the bounds of knowledge and awareness, and like the Fool does, it starts a new journey. You know, Uranus really kind of opened up a new journey for humanity. Some people think the planet Uranus should be called Prometheus, who is said to, well, in the myths, it brought fire to humans and changed the way humans lived. So knowing kind of the energy of those planets gives you a little bit of an idea about the energy of the planet. Mercury is the mind, but also is the messenger of the gods and the trickster and an alchemist. So that's the magician, right? So
Yes, that
yeah.
I understand. But I want to
Yeah.
ask you, why
Yeah.
these three cards? Let's say the Fool, Magician, and Empress, they have just planets, but they don't have zodiac associated with
They
them.
don't have the zodiac sign.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, then after those first three, the first
And there are not only them, I'm sorry for interrupting, there is not only
yeah.
them, it's also Wheel of Fortune, Handman, Tower, the Sun, Judgment, and World, which also don't have zodiac in them. So, but
Yeah.
all the rest have. So it's kind of like small mystery for me. I want to understand it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's a mystery so much. Like the first three, you know, the Fool and the Magician and the High Priestess, the Moon, they kind of start a journey, but they're also Mercury is the mind, and really the Moon is our intuition. So we've got Uranus starting the journey, breaking free. Then we have the mind and the intuition coming together. Then and then we have actually Venus is the Empress, so it's the first four, those first cards, the first four. It's the signs, the zodiac signs start at the Emperor, not
Yes.
yeah, and that takes us through the zodiac, Aries, Taurus, but they all have planetary rulers, like Mars rules Aries, so they're more the physical kind of representations, if you like, of people. If you think about it, the emperor is actually really a you know, the ruler, the king kind of
Yes.
thing.
Structure.
Yeah, and the hierophant was kind of the
I am
priestly.
principal. I am.
Yes, yes. And so they kind of have similar meanings, the planets and signs, because a planet will rule a sign. So I don't see it as a real kind of challenge. I don't see it as that way. I kind of just see those cards as more the embodiment of how the planets work on the Earth. Okay, so I
Oh,
think
that
that's
explains so
good.
much because I wanted to
Yeah,
understand the logic there. Um,
yeah,
Otherwise, it's kind of like I understand when I study the planets and everything, let's say Venus and Empress, it makes sense. But my question was why there is no zodiac there? Just like where is that? Why specifically Handman doesn't have it? Why, let's say, the world doesn't have it? And now I actually got the point. Because
yeah,
in fact, what you say to me, like that consciousness, all the accumulation of that consciousness is represented only in specific cards. It's represented like, and that type of consciousness, which is attributed to specific zodiac, right? It's
yes,
only
yeah,
attributed to specific cards.
yeah,
So it's very interesting. So there are cards like preparatory cards before it is accumulated like in a certain like part of a human being.
yeah,
Because even zodiacs, they represent, I believe so, like when they started it in the westernized world, like every kind of zodiac is in us, right? Let's say
yes.
Cancer
Oh, it
is
is. Yeah,
chest,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. And even people who go, well, I have nothing in, say, Cancer, they mean they have no planet. They mean they have no planets in Cancer or
yeah.
asteroids or whatever. but you still have Cancer in
Yes.
yeah. And then after we had the first 4 cards, then we go through the 12 signs of the zodiac to the moon card. And then after that, we go back to planetary bodies again.
Yeah, but
Through
even
the
in
sun.
between, the Handman also no zodiac. Wheel of
Yes. Yeah,
Fortune,
actually,
no
yeah.
zodiac.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this is, and then the Tower, also no zodiac. So these
That's true.
are interesting,
Yeah.
transformative cards. Because even like the Tower, when you look at the
Oh,
Tower,
yeah.
before you go to the star, you must
Yes.
actually experience some breakdown, right?
Oh, yeah. The Tower, Mars. Ooh. Yes.
By the
Cuts
way,
it
Louise,
down.
how are you going around meditations? Just would love to understand. Are you a meditating person? Do you use
I
meditations?
actually, well, I have a Gemini moon and my ADHD, it shows in my astrology, and I cannot just sit and meditate. I can do it in a group or a guided meditation, but I walk daily. That's my meditation. And I
So it's
do
active meditation.
yeah, and I do shamanic journey work. That's meditation. I
Mm.
have to do active meditation.
Yeah, so guys, you see, if you have moon in Gemini, it means you are like Louise.
Yeah,
It means it's
partly.
okay to walk and
It
meditate.
is. Yeah.
Accept
Plus I'm
yourself. Accept yourself.
exactly. Plus I'm a Sagittarius with so much energy in Sagittarius. I have Sun, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, and rising sign in Sagittarius. That's a fire sign. I need action and movement. I'm not very good at just sitting still.
That was such powerful talk, and I would love here to summarize it with the following words, guys. One of the most powerful phrases which I ever heard, I heard specifically from this lady in front of you, from Louise, and she said, I believe we are here in this human suit to be fully human and to descend to a true interconnectedness with the elements and the cycles of life, all life. Do you hear how powerful it is? Like, Louise, I want to thank you for that. Because when I
Well,
read
thank
it
you.
in your website, I was thinking, oh my God, all my life I wanted to ascend, and this girl tells me descend. You know?
Well, I think in that by descending, I do think we're ascending into our higher self
Yes,
because we are human. We're not waiting till we
yes.
die to go off to, whatever's after. I don't know.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really,
you.
really enjoyed this talk. I would love only one phrase from you, which you can send as a gift to all of our listeners, maybe so that to inspire them, to aspire them to study maybe themselves as part of this cosmic world as a cosmic weaver. What would you say to them?
Oh gosh. You're asking somebody with so much in her mind to do one phrase, but I would say really your primary focus of personal growth or development is that self-awareness and self-understanding, and everything else ripples out from that. So, yeah.
Yes. Self-awareness is the key.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Liz. It was a real
Thank you.
pleasure.
Oh, it really was. Thank you. Thank you for having me.